Tony Messenger, editorial page editor of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, filling in for McGraw, who's probably out enjoying the 40. Actually, he's not enjoying the 46-degree temperature, but hopefully by the time it gets to 65, McGraw is going to be outside enjoying the temperature. Pleased to have Senator Roy Blunt in studio with us today. Senator, how are you doing?
I'm good, Tony. Good to be here. I was going to leave my jacket in the car, and I was listening to you on the way in. You said the studio was colder than outside. So
it is. Kelly's been complaining. Kelly's been complaining about it all morning long.
Really,
yeah.
Tony?
Yeah,
Messenger.
you have.
It didn't sound like Kelly complaining
really?
to me.
Okay, maybe I've been complaining.
Maybe you were complaining.
Thank
I don't
you.
know.
You were complaining.
As the senator knows, I complain for a living.
The editorial page of the Post-Dispatch, I'd say that's a fair description. Complain for a living.
And you would probably say that you agree with us, 90, 95% of the time?
I would use that number. I would use that number as one of the numbers I'd say about whether I agreed or not. But
so you and I were talking the other day, and we had this horrific shooting down at Fort Hood, the second time that military base has had a shooting by a member within the military who there's clearly been some questions about his mental health. It's been a topic that has been in the news a lot, not just as it relates to the military, but I want to start by talking about the military. What's interesting about the Fort Hood shooting is that is a base that has had a little bit more attention in the last year or so on dealing with the incredible number of soldiers and veterans we have coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan and other deployments, dealing with serious mental health issues. And yet we don't seem to be, as a nation, yet making much progress in treating those issues very well. Tell us a little bit about what you're working on in Congress to try to improve mental health treatment for our veterans.
Well, I think for our veterans, for people generally, mental health, for whatever reason, has been an issue as a society we just haven't wanted to deal with. And, when you look at the violent tragedies of various kinds that have happened in the country, there can be a different location, a different weapon, a different set of victims. But the one thing that's always consistent is somebody with a mental health problem, normally known in the community or at least in their family, that hasn't been dealt with adequately, and we have just refused to deal with that. In fact, Tony, after the Sandy Hook tragedy, the shootings at Sandy Hook Elementary School in late 2012, the Senate committee that deals with mental health had a hearing in January on mental health. It was the first hearing that any Senate committee had on mental health since 2007. Now, this is something that, the National Institute of Health says 1 out of 4 adult Americans has a diagnosable and in all likelihood treatable mental health concern, 1 out of 4. But the Senate committee that deals with this hadn't had a hearing in 7 years almost. So we just haven't dealt with it properly. Senator Stabenow and I introduced legislation last year, got a pilot project for that legislation passed just recently, called the Excellence in Mental Health Act, where we would treat for the purposes of mental health clinics and federally qualified clinics that wanted to add behavioral health in a 24-hour-a-day kind of full-service mental health world, where they get reimbursed for mental health just by the government, just like they get reimbursed for any other kind of health. And I asked the Surgeon General of the Army before the Defense Committee that Senator McCaskill and I both sat on the other day, if this statistic, 1 out of 4 in the general population, how would that relate to the people in the military? And she said, we recruit from the general population. She said, my view is that number's about right for people in the military. And whether it's the Afghanistan and Iraq, where you really are never secure, where there's no behind the lines kind of moment, because even on the military base itself, we see people killed and in danger, or just people, when you look at veteran suicides, many of those veterans have never been deployed in Iraq or Afghanistan, but they suffer depression. They, for whatever reason, either don't get the right kind of treatment or aren't comfortable going places to get the right kind of treatment. And I think as a society generally, We just have to start dealing with that issue as we would any other health issue, both for treatment, reimbursement, and the way that the society feels about you when you just say, look, I'm having some problems and I'm seeing a doctor and I'm taking the right medicine or I'm going through the right therapies and I'm doing really well. People are afraid to say that now, and we've got to get over that.
So to that end, I'm getting the break sign here. We're going to have to take a break. We'll get back. I got a question for you on that, and then we'll talk about some other things.
Okay.
Can you stay for
I'll be
another
here.
segment?
I'll be here.
Senator Roy Blunt with us. You're listening to the Big 550 KTRS. Let's take a break. Tony Messenger filling in for McGraw.